This hotel lighting is not optimal, but what can I do? What can I do? Guys, greetings from New York City. I'm here for a few weeks, came to see some old friends, some family, and it's my 30th birthday at the time of this video. So I just wanted to do a getaway trip, get away from the Miami heat, even though ironically it's hotter here at the moment, and just have like a change of scenery for a bit. And also, to be honest, there's a part of me that every time I come to New York since I left, since I used to live here for years and years and years, there's a part of me that's always trying to like fix my view of New York City or improve it, because I wasn't that happy when I lived here, and I've talked about that before. One of my first videos ever on this channel back in 2018, was it beginning of 2018 or end of 2017, was called Gay Dating in New York City. And I didn't know at the time that I was going to travel so much over the next few years, and that gay dating in XYZ city or country, that would be like a theme for this channel. And it seems to be the favorite theme for you guys. Those are always the videos that get me the most views, the most comments, particularly the gay dating videos in the Middle East, which is kind of unsurprising because people are always curious about that experience, gay or not. So of course, coming here for 2 weeks, I had to make a follow-up gay dating in New York City video. So these are my thoughts and what it's been like the last few weeks. So the first thing I have to say is, of course, I know, as many of you guys know, that New York City is like a gay mecca, right? I mean, even just outside of the gay thing, like any community or subculture you will find in numbers here, just because it's such a populated, concentrated city. I believe there's like 10 million people in New York City, I want to say, all in this like tight space. And for that reason, of course, there is a huge gay population, just like there is in San Francisco. Of course, in LA, where I've lived previously, in Miami, where I live currently, there is a gay community, there is a gay presence. It's not some small town, but here it's a whole other level. And it's funny how it's been 3 or 4 years since I left living here permanently, and I guess I just kind of forgot how big the numbers are. As soon as I got here, I checked out some of the apps, and it's kind of overwhelming how many profiles you see, how many men you encounter. Every time you reload one of the apps that's GPS based, so like a Grindr, a Jacked, I don't know, what are the others? A Hornet, like all those kinds of apps, you see new faces and new profiles. Like that's how many gay people there are, that the profiles, the first 100 profiles you see will constantly shift based on when you reload. And it's the same thing with the Tinders and the Bumbles. Like you never really run out of matches or potential matches because there's so many guys here. So there's a beauty to that, of course. But I remember that one of my like pain points living here was that I felt like with gay dating, it was like a revolving door. There's so many options that people move on very quickly. People are flaky. And it's funny that in a 2-week period of being here, I very quickly had that same experience of this initial optimism and like being overwhelmed, but in a good way. Like, wow, look at all these men, and quality guys, like qualitative profiles where people actually fill out details and they look just a bit more, I would say, polished and cultured and professional than honestly I've been used to seeing in Miami and in LA. And I remember feeling this exact same way in Paris last summer, for those of you guys who saw that video, where I was like, oh yeah, like this is how it's supposed to be. People actually, have nice profiles and present themselves. They care about presentation. And even just in general, I would say a lot of the guys are more conversational here. But at the end of the day, it is a lot of the same bullshit. While here, there's 3 guys that I was talking to back and forth on different apps. And in the end, only one of them actually made the effort to meet me in person. And we went on a little casual date. We got drinks, which turned into dinner. I'll get back to him in a second. But with the other two guys, it was the classic experience, right? That people always talk about on apps where you talk, there seems to be a connection, and then the person just doesn't meet you halfway and you don't understand why. And here, I think it happens more because people are so busy between just social life and work. I don't think this is a city where people have a healthy work-life balance, just from my memory and my friends here. It's just different in a place like LA or Miami where the weather plays such a big role that people just seem happier and they are more focused on having a fulfilling personal life. So here, between work and just how busy things get, between all the things you can do, I think people just prioritize things like dating less. That being said, of course, as a visitor, it's also a unique experience, right? Like you can't make a ton of conclusions just based on being here for a few weeks. And I'm aware that some guys probably didn't want to even engage with me knowing that I was visiting. Like, I don't blame them. I have that feeling in Miami too. It's such a transient city. There's so many tourists that after a while, you're kind of already putting a wall up with anybody who's visiting, because you know that realistically the likelihood of it turning into something more concrete or substantive over time is that much tougher, right? Like, you want to build a community, whether platonic or romantic, with people who are actually there to stay. So I matched with a bunch of professional, interesting, attractive guys, but the reality is most of them didn't even like converse back. Now with the guy that I did go on a date with, I guess I'll give like the Cliff Notes version, but it was a strange date. We hung out for, I think, about 3 hours. So there was a flow. Like, it wasn't like he was desperate to leave or I was desperate to leave. We had a nice dinner. He was super inquisitive. We just had a good conversation, but the whole time I felt like I couldn't read him. There was no spark. I was attracted to him. He claimed to be attracted to me. I mean, we matched on Tinder, right? So you have to match in the first place and to then actually meet up. There has to be some kind of desire, right, to get to know the person. But I found him very difficult to read. And when I look back, the first red flag was right when I got to see him. He fist bumped me, which I was like, and I think he saw something in my eyes. I didn't make that face, but I think I was probably kind of like, a little stunned. And then he went straight in for a hug because I think he could tell that I felt bizarre about it. But I think that him being Middle Eastern, there was kind of maybe like a discomfort with showing affection or showing desire towards another man in public. So I left the date feeling kind of unusual because it was a nice connection, but it felt platonic or almost like even professional more than anything. It felt almost like we networked. And it's like, I didn't come to Tinder to network. I'm sure some of you are watching and thinking like, what did you expect? You're only there for a few weeks. Like, what were you really looking for? And honestly, I don't have a clear answer for that, other than that I'm always open to new connections. And I'm such a romantic that I'm like, you never know. You could meet somebody and hit it off. And if you both really want to make it happen, you can find a way, especially nowadays with this COVID era. Like, so many people work from home. I am doing better financially than I've ever done. If I met the right guy in New York, I would be willing to do the not bi-coastal, but now bisexual, whatever it's called, like going from Miami to New York and back and forth. And also I was just open to fun, like meeting guys and seeing if there's a casual connection. But it's just funny that it brought back this feeling of like, in New York, everything is there, everything feels available and attainable. But there's this, for me, this constant state of like FOMO, because you see it there. It's almost like a tease, like you have options, but for some reason, things always feel out of reach. And at least that's how I felt when I lived here, and the past few weeks have been me reliving that. And so interestingly, this date that I went on, even though it led to an in-person encounter, date, whatever, I left feeling that same, I don't know if void is the right word, that sounds a little dramatic probably, but this same feeling of like, why is it so complicated? Like, why is it so complicated to have a successful date or connection or even something casual? The good news is I have stayed so busy while here seeing old friends. Like almost every day I've had plans, dinner plans, drink plans with friends. And that was a positive thing for me to realize, like, oh yeah, like I have a network here. Like if I ever want to come back here, I have that here. And it's so important, I think, to feel like you have a base and you have people who know you, where you don't have to like try to impress them or leave a good first impression, kind of like that date that I had. Like these are people who know you, who've known you for years. At the end of the day though, with all my travels, all the moving I've done over the years, what I've learned is that the grass really is always greener. Like there's always going to be pros and cons to every place. There's always going to be a possibility to long for something that you don't have anymore where you live currently, which is why it was so important for me to leave New York in the first place, because I recognized that if I wasn't happy, I had to at least change something. And I think a lot of people stay somewhere because of the people they know. Like they'll stay in a place because their family is there or because all their friends are there. I actually went to dinner with a friend last night who said this. He was like, I can't imagine leaving New York City because my whole network is here. Like I'm at an age where I don't have the energy or the willpower to start over. I think for a lot of people, they live in New York because of the community, because of the people here, the kind of like person that you can find here, that you can attract. It is very different from the rest of the United States in terms of diversity, in terms of like, I just think people here have a bit more, obviously I'm generalizing, but it's easier to find people who are more educated and more sort of cultivated here in New York City. But I remember when I left New York City, I left for a reason. Like I wasn't fulfilled by my relationships here. I wasn't fulfilled, period. But I remember thinking, I need to now live somewhere where I want to live and not just focus on the people. Like there's more to life than just the people around you. You have to enjoy the place you live, and it has to be the right environment for you. And one great thing about this trip has been that I've now, towards the end of the trip, I've been longing to like go back home. I've been kind of missing my little nook, like my apartment in Miami, and just my routine of being able to walk everywhere. Of course, New York City is a walkable city, but just my routine of like the weather being consistent, prices are not astronomical, I can walk to the beach, and these are elements I think as you get older you prioritize more than just like who's around you. So I've had friends say like, don't you miss New York? Like, don't you see yourself coming back here? I mean, you're not gonna find the kind of people in Miami that you find here. But my whole thing is, I tried this, I tried it for years and years. And now that I'm visiting, yes, it's only been 2 weeks, but I've had a very similar experience thus far to what I experienced when I lived here. In terms of the constant sort of like frustrations and confusion with people, that hasn't changed. So to me, it's more important to live somewhere where I'm fulfilled by other things, like other things bring me joy. So that's my take on gay dating in New York City part 2. I don't feel, just from these 2 weeks, I know it's not a long time, but I don't feel that much has changed since I've left here in terms of what that experience is like. Who knows what the future will hold, but for now, I am pleased to have my calm, more simple, more laid-back existence and lifestyle in Miami Beach. Thanks for watching, guys.